There is a crow on your fence right now. It is watching you. It knows your car. It knows your face. It knows what time you take out the trash, and is almost certainly told other crows about you. You probably think of crows as background noise, just black shapes on a wire, just loud birds that show up when something is dead. But the truth is stranger than that. The crow in your yard might be running a small, quiet life that rivals a primate's. It remembers. It plans. Gossips. It holds grudges. And somewhere in that little dinosaur skull, it is making decisions about you. So the real question is not whether crows are smart. The real question is what they actually do all day when we are not paying attention. What does the secret life of a backyard crow really look like? In the early 2000s, a researcher named John Marchleff did something simple and slightly absurd at the University of Washington. He put on a rubber mask, walked outside, and gently trapped a few crows. Then he let them go. For years afterward, every time someone wore that exact mask on campus, the crows mobbed them. People who had never touched a crow in their lives got dive-bombed for wearing the wrong face. Crows that had never been trapped knew the mask was dangerous. They had learned it from other crows. That is not instinct. That is culture. And it is happening in your neighborhood. Let's start with the morning. Before sunrise, crows wake up inside a communal roost that can hold thousands of birds. They sleep together for warmth and safety. They wake up together, often noisily, in waves. Then they fan out across the city in small family groups, heading to their daytime territories. Your backyard is somebody's office. The same crow or the same little family returns to the same blocks day after day. They learn which yards have dogs. They learn which windows have cats behind them. They learn which humans throw food and which humans throw rocks. And they remember it for years. Crow memory is one of the most studied things about them. In experiments, crows have recognized specific human faces more than a decade after a single bad encounter. A decade. That is longer than most people remember their old coworkers. Now think about what that means for the crow that watched you yell at it last summer. It remembers, and it has probably mentioned you to its kids. Yes, its kids. Crow families are tight. A breeding pair often stays together for years, sometimes for life. Their grown children frequently stay home for a season or two to help raise the next batch of chicks. Biologists call this cooperative breeding. In plain words, it means older crow siblings babysit. They bring food. They guard the nest. They chase away hawks twice their size. The crow you see hopping awkwardly on the lawn in June might be a teenager learning the job. And it is learning by watching its parents, the way a kid watches a parent cook. That is one of the deep secrets of crows. So much of what they know is not born in them. It is taught. Now let's talk about food, because food is the engine of the whole operation. Crows are omnivores in the most extreme sense of the word. They eat insects, seeds, fruit, eggs, small animals, roadkill, garbage, pet food, and anything mysterious left on a picnic table. But they do not eat randomly. They map their neighborhoods like delivery drivers. They know which dumpster opens on Tuesday. They know which fast food parking lot has the most dropped fries. They know which lawn turns up worms after sprinklers run. And here's where it gets uncomfortably clever. Crows cache food. They hide leftovers in gutters, under leaves, inside flower pots, on top of porch lights. They remember dozens of these hiding spots at once. And if another crow watches them hide it, they will often come back later and move it. They lie. They deceive on purpose. That requires understanding that another mind exists and can be fooled. Most animals on Earth cannot do that. Crows do it before breakfast. Then there are the tools. The crows in your backyard probably do not carve sticks like their famous cousins in New Caledonia. But North American crows still use objects in clever ways. They drop walnuts onto roads so cars will crack them. They wait for traffic lights and walk into the crosswalk to retrieve the pieces. They use bits of bark to scrape food out of cracks. They use water dishes as bathtubs and as soaking tools to soften hard bread. A bird that softens its food is doing something close to cooking. Pause on that for a second. Now imagine you are a crow and you have just done all of this before noon. What do you do for fun? Because crows, by every honest observation, seem to play. They slide down snowy roofs on their backs. They hang upside down from branches for no apparent reason. They pull the tails of larger animals and fly away laughing in their own scratchy way. They play keep away with sticks. They surf on wind gusts above tall buildings. Play, in animals, is usually a sign of a brain that has spare capacity. A brain that is not constantly fighting just to survive. A brain with room to wonder. Speaking of you, I want to pause for a second and ask something. Have you ever had a strange moment with a crow in your own yard? Maybe one that watched you a little too long. Maybe one that brought you a shiny object or screamed at you for no reason you could understand. I would genuinely love to read those stories down in the comments. Drop the weirdest, smallest crow encounter you can remember. Then come back because the next part is where it gets a little spooky. Crows hold funerals. That is not poetry. That is observed behavior. When a crow finds a dead crow, it often calls loudly, and within minutes, dozens of other crows arrive. They gather around the body. They go quiet, or they call in waves. They stay for a while, then they leave. Researchers think this is not grief in the human sense, but something more practical and just as fascinating. The living crows are studying the scene. They are learning what killed their neighbor. They are remembering the place, the predator, and any human nearby. Marcelef's team found that crows who attend a crow funeral are more cautious about that exact location and that exact threat for a long time afterward. A death becomes a lesson shared across a whole flock. That is information traveling through a culture. That is, in its own quiet way, history. Now zoom out and look at your block. Up in the trees, signals are constantly flying around that you cannot read. Crows have a wide vocabulary of calls. Short caws, long caws, rattles, clicks, soft coos meant only for family. Different patterns mean different things in different regions, almost like local accents. A crow in Tokyo does not sound exactly like a crow in Toronto. And within a single neighborhood, individual crows seem to recognize each other's voices. When something dangerous happens, the alarm spreads through the block in seconds. The hawk on the telephone pole. The cat sneaking through the bushes. The stranger walking too slowly past the nest tree. You may have heard it without realizing what you were hearing. That sudden burst of cawing from multiple directions is rarely random. It is a community talking to itself about a problem. And sometimes that problem is a person. If a crow decides you are a threat, the consequences can last years. They will scold you when you leave the house. They will follow you down the street. Their offspring, who have never met you, will inherit the suspicion. But the reverse is also true. Crows can decide you are a friend. There are well-documented cases of people who fed crows regularly and started receiving gifts in return. Bottle caps, bits of glass, small bones, R-rings, far. Once, a child in Seattle became locally famous for the small treasure pile her crow friends left on the feeder. Nobody fully understands why crows do this. It might be a misfire of their own gift-giving behavior between mates. It might be something closer to gratitude. We honestly do not know, and that uncertainty is part of the wonder. Because when you really look at a crow, you are looking at a mind shaped by a completely different evolutionary path than ours. Birds split from our mammal ancestors hundreds of millions of years ago. Their brains are wired differently from ours. They have no neocortex, the part of our brain we usually credit for higher thinking. And yet they solve puzzles, plan futures, recognize faces, mourn their dead, and teach their young. Intelligence, it turns out, is not one road. It is many roads, climbing the same mountain from different sides. And the crow on your fence climbed its own road to get there. So tonight, when the sky turns that deep blue right before dark, look up. you may see long ribbons of blackbirds flowing across the sky in the same direction. That is the evening commute. Crows from miles around heading back to the communal roost to sleep together. Among them, almost certainly, is the crow that knows your yard. It is carrying a memory of you in a brain the size of a walnut. Maybe a good memory, maybe a wary one. Either way, you are part of its story now, and it has been part of yours longer than you realize. If this little tour through the secret life of crows made you see your backyard a bit differently, do me a quick favor and hit the like button. It genuinely helps more curious people find the channel. If you want more strange, warm, true stories about how animals actually think, go ahead and subscribe. And tell me in the comments which animal mind you want to step inside next. Octopuses, ravens, elephants, dogs, house cats, or something weirder. In the next video, we are going to climb into a brain that does not even have a face. Until then, keep watching the Watchers. They are almost certainly watching you back.